But if you begin with your audience from the very moment you start preparing, in every sense, who are they? What do they need? Why are they there? What would I like them to think, feel, and do as a result of my words? How do I want them to respond? Then you can craft a message that creates content that is perfect for your audience. But from the time you start preparing, you're connected with that group of people, even before you see them. Your message is crafted for them. And then when you show up, you become the person who embodies the presentation and connects and engages with your audience to deliver this exquisite content.
Welcome to the Success Consultancy's Just Great People podcast, the podcast that introduces you to ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. My name is Barry Eustance, and I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Hi everybody, it's Barry Eustance here from the Success Consultancy's Just Great People podcast. I'm going to read you something that will be the intro to our next guest. Breathtaking communication skills that level the playing field so that everyone in or aspiring to leadership has an equal voice. Welcome Fiona Brennan-Scott from Bespoken, author of Breathtaking Communication and her own Communication Academy. Welcome to Just Great People podcast. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you, Barry, for inviting me. It's lovely to be here.
Listen, I'm going to pass this, as I always do, over to you to really tell us a little bit about yourself, but also importantly, how you achieve that vision of breathtaking communication skills. And I know all about breathtaking because when you don't breathe, you run out of breath and you run out of voice. And it's happened to me more than once. So I'd be delighted to sit in the corner, answer the questions that our dear listeners and viewers are going to want to hear answers to. And over to you. Thank you, Fiona.
Lovely. Thank you, Barry. I suppose I should start with being an audience member. I've always loved watching live shows and watching people on stage transport us as an audience to somewhere new and different and exotic. That was my experience from an early age growing up in Ireland. And as I got older, I had a passion and a dream to do drama. I think I wanted to be an actress. And nothing happened until I was 15 through various circumstances. But then the first speech and drama studio opened in our town, and I was a foundation member of that with an amazing lady called Mary Cummins. And from there, drama was always something that energized me. The ability to express myself, the ability to become someone else, the confidence that came from actually putting on the mask of another character helped me to grow in confidence. Alongside this, I was doing public speaking exams in school from about 13 because that was the only option available in school. So I just loved the art of public speaking and speaking words aloud and engaging with people and putting ideas out there in a way that was spoken more than written. When I was 18, I failed to get into Trinity College Dublin studying drama, so I did marketing and administration in Dublin, but became a founder member of the Drama Society over a pint of Guinness in a Dublin pub where all the best ideas happen. And
Absolutely.
I think that's really key in terms of the parallel of everything I did always had that element of communication and drama in it. So when I was 29 and had been in international marketing and was looking for a change, I was reaching a point of burnout. I decided to study to become a speech and drama teacher. And by 31, I'd opened my first studio in South Africa where I lived and reopened again in England where we moved after 13 years of me being in South Africa. And that just was a means of helping people. I always ran it not as a place to help people become professional actors, but as a place to develop life skills, to gain confidence, to play for children, for preteens, for teenagers and adults. And I guess working with adults was most rewarding because they really appreciate play because it's not something they get to do a lot. But also they really, because they're paying for the work, the sessions themselves, they really put everything into them. And alongside that, I was always working with people who approached me for confidence skills, for presentation skills, for effective communication skills. And
And
here I
it's
am 8 years ago.
yeah.
I was tired. Sorry. Eight
No,
years
carry
ago,
on.
I'd had enough of working with young people. My own children were gone off to university and I focused just on the corporate world. I worked as an associate for a corporate training company and have just focused completely on business people and helping them to raise their confidence in the workplace.
And it's such an important skill. It is said, isn't it, that as you've identified in your vision statement, it's really almost a prerequisite of leadership and leaders to have that ability and that confidence to communicate. And yet it is said that people perhaps fear public speaking more than they fear death. And it's a pretty I sympathize and empathize with that view, because you put someone in front of 4,000 people. And I was speaking to someone recently who was involved with a very large company who was about to have to do that and was seeking coaching and guidance and the confidence to make that gigantic leap in their own mind to be able to walk in front of that group, peer group, and speak confidently. How do you do it? What's the secret? How do you make that huge transformational leap in someone's head, Fiona?
Well, first of all, just to touch on what you said about they fear it more than dying, I always say that the reason it's on the top three of any phobia, it's called glossophobia, is because it combines three of the other top fears: fear of rejection in front of a group of people instead of an individual, fear of failure, and that's failing in front of a lot of people, and fear of death. I don't know if you know this, but in the theatre world, if you get a blank or lose your place or forget what to do on stage, it's called corpsing, which means to die. So that makes sense. So how do you overcome that? For some people, they've never had to overcome it, and it's probably because they've loved communication, loved speaking, loved words, and grown up in an environment where that's been very natural. The people I work with generally have avoided it their whole lives. So actually doing a little bit of it your whole life makes it less scary. But a lot of people who avoid it then get to a stage in their career, for instance, people in STEM, science, technology, engineering, manufacturing, accountancy, and legal, can carry on for years in their work, doing really well by doing the thing that they've studied. But then they get promoted into leadership, and all of a sudden they find there's a gap between their competence in doing the thing and their competence in communicating the thing. And yet, when you become a leader, the most part of your job, the biggest part of your job, is leading people to do the thing. So communication becomes vital. And my job is to close that gap between competent ability in your subject matter expertise and confident communication of that expertise. And you just want
I
to
think
know how it's done in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, interesting. I was going to say this isn't scripted in any way, folks. So, dear listener and dear viewer, it's not scripted. But and this isn't Morpin Wise either, because the person I was talking about was, in fact, had been and was a senior IT leader and had been involved with the person who was about to spend time in front of 4,000 people. And I guess those who aren't frightened of death, are fairly few and far between. So over to you, Fiona, but I just wanted to drop that topical comment in that reinforced the point you made. So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Another issue that you've just brought to mind is that public speaking, communication skills, presenting is referred to as a soft skill. So it's minimized. A soft skill is quite a pathetic word. I like to think of it as a cultural skill. It's really tough. It's really hard to be good at it. It's really easy to be quite bad at it. So it's really important, first of all, to acknowledge with people that it's not easy. It's challenging to do it well. And probably the reason they're coming to me is because they recognize that it's not easy and they respect the fact that it's challenging to do it well. When I work with people, start with helping them identify their hope for outcomes. So what do they want to accomplish? Because I love the 7 habits of highly effective leaders, where they say start with the end in mind. So we look at what the goals are. What will it look like? And that makes it more tangible, because obviously a lot of the people I work with tangible things. It's measurable. You can see when there's success. So what will have changed? Will you be earning more money? Will you be able to volunteer to present at the next conference? Will you be free from anxiety? will you actually enjoy public speaking? So we identify these outcomes, and then the next step is to take someone through a voice and speech profile. This is an opportunity for them to present for 4 or 5 minutes, and we record it, and they present and converse, and we measure it. And from this, I can identify the person's strengths and their weaknesses. So, one of my specialities is diagnostics. I'm really good at listening and hearing what the problem is and identifying what needs to change. And what's amazing is obviously they're coming to me because they perceive a problem, but truly they have a lot of strengths that they're completely ignoring. So, we celebrate the strengths and then we identify the challenges. And the next step after that, in however long it needs to take, 4, 6, 8 sessions, we work towards me equipping them with the tools and techniques that will empower them to step up and speak out with power, with clarity, with confidence. And just to say, because it's been a growing part of my work, I also get a lot of people coming to me who have social anxiety around small talk and informal conversations. But a lot of the foundation work, actually, I would say all the foundation work is the same for both.
In fact, I was going to ask you of the end states that people are looking to achieve, financial, career progression, and the rest of it. What is the standout? What's the one that most people seem to be wanting to achieve?
The one thing that comes up most frequently would be not to be terrified, which I always help them reframe as confident speaking.
So it isn't about money. It's actually about it's kind of it's the inner assassin they want to get rid of, is it? I guess the get away from the fear, the fright, the terror that is actually disabling, isn't it? It's essentially the symptoms are similar to that of a full blown panic attack.
It can be. It's also about something that comes across as well is the desire to fulfill their potential. They know they're capable of more. They know it's up here. They've got the passion in their hearts, but that ability to communicate it effectively and calmly and joyfully is just not there at all. And to be honest with you, even though I listed them with a financial outcome first, that always comes up last. And I normally have to ask and say, let's just identify a return on investment in terms of what it would look like financially or career wise, because that's not ever the focus with people. Another one that comes up is that anxiety, that the feelings in their stomach that debilitate them, that's life shortening, it's crippling. One of the things I say is what I do is not rocket science, but if you don't know, you don't know. And they've probably been avoiding growing those tools and techniques throughout their lives.
Well, that abdominal tension is literally breathtaking, isn't it? You had just run out of steam, and suddenly what was a strong, powerful voice becomes a weak whisper as you basically run out of air. And it's something I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers will be familiar with. You say it's not rocket science. What is it? What is it how do you characterize it? What is it that actually makes the difference? And obviously it's going to be different in different cases, but generally speaking.
Having said that, I did study for about 5 years, and I'm still learning to understand and know voice production and learn about speech. And I did examinations through Trinity College London to understand it as a teacher and now as a coach. So what it is it starts with tension in the body, because that's the first thing that happens when we try to speak. And the problem with tension in the body is it causes the muscles to tighten. And those muscles, some of them are around the throat, where our voice box is. They're in our chest and shoulders. So they're inhibiting the flow of air. So the very first step is to do I have some exercises to free the person from tension. Another problem with tension is when we are tense, we're very self-focused and self-conscious. We're not engaging with our audience. So our audience can't engage with us well and easily. They can't relax and enjoy what we've got to say. And then we go on
And
to posture. I do posture after that.
and that becoming self-aware is just exacerbating the problem. So I guess it's almost like a spiral, isn't it? It's just getting worse and worse, and there's nowhere to go. They're all in front of you, and you can't breathe, you can't talk, and you can't exit the stage easily, although you'd like to. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of empathy with people who felt exactly that.
Well, can I
Your
introduce you to my Fs? Well, I mean, they're
please,
well known, but I think I've
please,
added a
please,
few.
please,
Fiona's F.
please do.
The response
Fiona's
of
F.
people when that happens in their brain is, and you've all heard this before: flight, fright, freeze, faint, fail. And that's terribly sad when you've got something to say. And the thing is, if you go into that situation ill-equipped, it doesn't just bring you to zero, it takes you back so that you don't ever want to do it again, because the memory of that is so hard. So that tension in the body releases chemicals, and it just also means you lose your words and you can't function, but it also breaks that connection with your audience. So it's very upsetting to talk about, because it's people listening will identify with it that have been there, and it can be
Absolutely.
crippling and debilitating in terms of moving forward as well. So I really love to work with people before they get there. But in terms of you mentioning self-awareness, Barry, it's also quite sad that there are a lot of people who aren't self-aware, who believe their speaking skills are perfectly good and fine, and there are audiences all around the world suffering as a result of that, because they're very good at their job. They know a lot of stuff and they are asked to speak. And it's up to the audience to fasten their seatbelts and really focus and do the very hard work of paying attention and gaining the knowledge from what they have to say. But my attitude is they should be able to sit back and receive the message and enjoy it.
And you've written a book, Breathtaking Communication, that I assume is also going to be running alongside your academy. Can you just give us a bit of background to the book, the academy, and
Yes.
how that's going to help the people who are suffering? And I have to say, I think it's a very substantial number of people who have the issue, and quite reasonably. I come from a background, the airline background, where you'd go in a simulator, have 2 days of ritual humiliation every 6 months, having done the training, done the training, which was equally humiliating most of the time, and certainly puts you in touch with the ability to fail, because it's pretty rigorous. But the great thing about the simulator was you could go in, you could practice, you could fail, you could practice, you could fail, you could practice, you could fail, practice, you get it right. And you get it right, and the more you do, the better you get. You practice until you get it right, then you practice until you can't get it wrong. And is that a methodology that is something that you are deploying for people who do have the gremlin that grabs the throat and sucks the air out of them?
Absolutely. And that's why coaching works, because you're providing a safe space for people to show up in. You're providing you're a cheerleader as well as a coach, congratulating what's going well, affirming, picking up on tweaks that need to change, and giving people the tools and techniques, as I said, that mean that they won't fail because they have scaffolding. So the foundation work is inner scaffolding. The modulation work is verbal scaffolding and speech. Articulation is also speech. And then the presentation is the external scaffolding. So when you've got all that in place and you've got the process, which I talk about in my book, of practice, preparation, you can't easily fail. But what you've also done is you've redefined success, because that's one of the key things, which is on page 5. It's my favorite page of the book, is a very simple model. I'm going to actually open page 5 and show you. Very, very simple model that I developed some years ago with a very brilliant man who was planning to go for interviews, and he was just very shy and very introverted. And I helped him realize that he didn't need to make it all about him, that it was actually about his audience. So this is the picture that I draw to illustrate it, that you've got your speaker, you've got your message, and your audience. 3 parts, all of them essential for effective communication. None of them can be excluded. Well, what is your priority? Where do you begin? And
And what's
based
the
on
answer
where
to
you
that question?
begin, well,
Yeah.
I'd like the audience to today to think about where is their priority, where do they begin? And that should infiltrate everything they do. Because if they start with a lot of people, a lot of subject matter experts will say, start with the content. I start doing slides. And that's great because that's your comfort zone. I can understand it, but it's not so great because you're connecting cerebrally with your content and your audience know that they're not a priority. If you are feeling nervous
Interesting.
and
Yeah.
anxious, you're beginning with yourself, you're not connected with your audience, as we said earlier. But if you begin with your audience from the very moment you start preparing, in every sense, who are they? What do they need? Why are they there? What would I like them to think, feel, and do as a result of my words? How do I want them to respond? Then you can craft a message that creates content that is perfect for your audience. But from the time you start preparing, you're connected with that group of people even before you see them. Your message is crafted for them. And then when you show up, you become the person who embodies the presentation and connects and engages with your audience to deliver this exquisite content. And often the content becomes a lot more about what to leave out than
Yes.
what to put in
Yes. Yes.
because you
Yeah.
have connected with what your audience needs. And as a subject matter expert, you and I could probably speak about what we know for days. People wouldn't need an anesthetic if they went into hospital because we could put them to sleep with how much we know. But actually, we don't want our audiences to fall asleep. In fact, Dion Opperman, who I went on a director's workshop in South Africa with this founder of the SA Film School, and he said our job as an actor is to keep audiences awake. And I think it's very basic, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is.
People
It
have
is.
had a
And
nice meal, they sit in a comfortable seat, the lights go down. Your natural instinct is to fall asleep. And so an actor at the very base level is there to keep them awake. And I think
yes.
a good speaker will keep their audiences wide awake, engaged, and enjoying every moment of what they hear.
Yeah, and I think that's such a valid point, isn't it? I find that whenever I'm writing something or PowerPoint, I'm actually visualizing who it's going to be directed towards and what their reaction is going to be. And the less is more is a very strong motivator that get rid of all the stuff that they don't want to know and they're going to forget anyway. Hit them with the simple messaging. Don't throw too many balls over the net because they're going to only be able to catch one or two. And it is in my own experience, it's so important that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at a very early stage of preparation, it's actually, as you say, the audience, and you're thinking about them, and it's that connection starts early. Is that correct, or am I just fantasizing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect.
I was going to say, we've got Breathtaking Communication, the book. And dear listener and dear reader, Fiona's details will be on the show notes. You'll be able to click through to the book and also to the Academy. But I think if we can cover the Academy, Fiona, and how that
Yes.
can help people come from that place to the new place that they want to be.
The book, which I'll just show you, is 22 years worth of my knowledge, my skills, and all the information a person could possibly need. And this is a legacy piece. I wanted to capture everything in one place because the people I've dedicated this book to have never written a book, and some of them are no longer alive. My first two drama teachers. And it's such a loss that the only place their knowledge exists is within the people they taught. And so before it dies with me, I'm created this book to capture all that knowledge. This is actually solely a communications book. I'm going to do another book. My next book is going to be drama lessons from the 16 years I did drama, which will sit alongside this to help people who are starting out doing maybe drama sessions or youth work or something in the workspace. Trainers can use for improv or whatever helps them help people with communication skills in a more playful space. But that was 2022. I wrote this. It was published in January 23. And last year, so that's very affordable, the price of a book. Then there's my coaching and there's my training where companies bring me in to train. There's also my keynote speaking, which is obviously where I get to speak at conferences and organizations about what I do in maybe 20 to 40 minutes and then have a Q&A. There was a gap that wasn't being met, and some of the people that weren't carrying on to work with me were people who couldn't afford the cost of a coach, or their company wasn't investing in training and they wanted more than the book. And so it became obvious to me, although I'm not a fan of technology and I wasn't really interested in building a platform and designing an online course, that this was a need that was out there and that I could meet by doing the course online. So I have spent some time, some months, putting that together with a very talented videographer, and it's now available. I published it last week, and that's to meet the gap of people who are up for self-led learning, e-learning. They can do it in their own time. There's several modules. They can pace themselves, and I'm going to have fortnightly drop-in sessions, Tuesdays and Thursdays, one at 12, one at 4, so that whatever time zone you're in, you can pop in and ask questions. And I still have a couple of places actually on the first cohort where I'm offering it for a ridiculously low price because I need some beta testers. So I want some feedback to make sure that as I move forward, it's even better. So that's available if people want to.
And what's the name of the course, Fiona?
It's called Breathtaking Communication, the online academy. It's taking my coaching and training skills, me speaking to a video for the most part. There's very little writing. You get to do the exercises with me in your own time, and then you get to pop in for the coaching. And it's got the content of the book in it as well, for the most part.
Perfect. That link will be there on the show notes as well, so that you've got access to Fiona directly for her coaching, the online academy, and the book, and all of them. And Fiona, here's a question that is fascinating. How many people who are in leadership or C-suite do you think are suffering, as I'm not for a specific figure, but in terms of proportion, who have the same impediment in terms of their ability to confidently communicate, who are in senior leadership positions? What's your experience on that?
I don't know the statistics. I've been attending conferences for years, and I know that if it's in STEM, there are about 70% of the people on the conference stage that are not doing the best job they could do. I know from speaking to people that there is a huge number of people that struggle. In conversation, I know that they're struggling. I would easily guess 70%, Barry.
It's a
What's
huge number, isn't it?
interesting, you talk about, top C-suite people suffering. What about their audiences? I mean, I use the
Good
term
point.
audience. I use the term audience instead of stakeholder. And I know
Yeah.
stakeholder is a really lovely, dynamic corporate word, but stakeholder seems to focus more on content, doesn't it? Whereas audience
I think
engagement is about the spoken word. And so how many boardrooms have got meetings that drag on, and how much productivity is lost because of people who aren't able to get their point across succinctly and dynamically. I think it's
and confidently.
confidently. So I think sadly, the self awareness thing, sometimes those leaders aren't suffering because they're unaware that they're not doing a good job. But if their subordinates had an opportunity to send them for some coaching, they probably would, because it
Yeah.
would help them get through the day and the week.
Yeah, well, the reason I ask is that there'll be lots of people who aren't sitting at board level or in senior leadership teams who will be worried that it's just them. And my sense was that those who lead them um, in significant proportion have the same issues, and that it's not just an isolated problem for you. It's a ubiquitous problem that can be resolved. It requires training, it requires rehearsal, it requires preparation, it requires having the correct scaffolding and the confidence, the focus, and the motivation to get it right. And Fiona's the person who can do it. Fiona Brennan-Scott from Bespoken. Listen, we're delighted to chat. I'm sure this podcast will be really inspiring for a lot of people who will suddenly feel a great burden lifted from their shoulders knowing that there's immediate help available from you. So thank you so much.
There is,
We look
yes.
forward to having you on the Success Consultancy's Just Great People podcast again very, very soon, because this is a subject that matters to everybody. Fiona, thank you very much indeed.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. I look forward to anyone who wants to reach out and have a conversation. I'm open to chatting through your communications issues with you.
Right. Fiona, thank you.
Bye-bye.
So that's it for today's Just Great People podcast from the Success Consultancy. We hope and trust you've enjoyed it. Please join us next time, and please do remember to subscribe. Thanks for joining us.